got to meet me, all of you got to meet me earlier actually. My journey into sport is completely different to these two guys over here. I think some of you about 8. Until I was about 8, I wasn't really able to take part in a lot of sport because I was pretty sick. So for me, until then, I could barely run around the block. And I didn't really have a sport, and I never skied because I lived in England and there was no mountains and there was no snow. So it was pretty tough for me. But what happened to me was that one day my school sent a bunch of kids away to Europe to go skiing, and they came back and they did a picture show. And we all had to go to assembly and watch this picture show, and I saw these kids that were skiing on a blue sky day, and I was like, I want to do that. Unfortunately for me, I lived in a big city called London, where there was barely any grass, let alone any mountains or snow. So I had to make do with doing other stuff. So for most of my time, up until I was about 18, I tried every single sport that I could do. I tried soccer, I tried swimming, I tried horse riding. I was terrible at every single one of those sports. I was the kid that was sat on the bench waiting to be picked right at the very end. But it didn't matter to me because I was just having fun. If I was there, I was with a bunch of my girlfriends and we were enjoying hanging out and enjoying doing sport. When I was about 18, I joined the British Army, which opened up a whole new world of sport to me. Everything was funded, and I got to go downhill skiing in Scotland. Now, Scotland doesn't have much snow either, so when you learn to ski in Scotland, you learn to ski on ice and you learn to ski over heather. So my experiences were interesting. But at the end of my first week of skiing, somebody said to me, "Oh, you run? You ever thought about cross-country skiing?" And I was like, "Wow, that sounds interesting, skiing up and downhill, I'll try that." So for 2 years, because there wasn't really a women's team, I pestered my bosses and said, "Look, I want to go over and try this cross-country skiing. How do I get there?" In fact, for like once a month, I would go and see my boss and ask how I would get there. Eventually, I got to join the army team as a novice, or beginner cross-country skier, when I was aged 21. We went out to Norway for a month. There was 4 girls and there was a whole bunch of guys, and we were the only women in Britain that were actually cross-country skiing and competing at that time. We arrived and there's people skiing everywhere, and I looked down at my skis and I can't even put them on, and nobody told me how. Everybody just went off skiing, and there I was trying to kick my foot into a binding. One nice guy came and opened my binding and told me to stick my toe in, and then I had to figure out how to get up the hill because they started at the bottom of the hill. So what I'm trying to say with this is that you can be like the worst, or you can be the complete beginner at any stage of your life. But what matters is that you have to want to go and do it. You have to want to go and try. By the end of my first season, I was beating all the girls on the team, and I got to go back for another year. And so I had to think, well, I love this sport. What do I want to do with it? I wanted to get to the national championships, and I wanted to try and go to the Olympics, which was crazy because I was 21, and like these guys are 18 months and 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's get skis on.
Yeah, 2.
But the biggest thing that I had was the belief in myself that anything is possible. Everything that's put up in front of you is just a barrier, and if you believe, or if you really badly want something, there's nothing to stop you from getting it other than yourself. Everything else is just a hurdle that you have to get over. So what happened from there was I went to the regional championships in my second season, and I was like, right, all these guys are racing, how do I get to the national championships? I have to beat the guys. So like all that summer before, I just trained really hard. I went out and I run, I did every sport I could with my friends, I took every opportunity to go out there and get fit. And I came back, and at the regional championships, I was the fastest girl, like skier in my age group, and I got a place at the national championships against the men in my own right. And from there, we got recognised by the management of the sport, and they wanted to develop a women's biathlon team. For those of you who don't know what biathlon is, it's cross-country skiing and shooting, and I have a rifle and some targets, and we'll take a look at them afterwards. And what was really cool was that they gave us free rein, they gave us a coach, and then they sent us out all over Europe to race. So we did training camps, we went and raced with the guys. You can have a look at it after, but no shooting. And what's really cool about my sport is that it's 2 really tough sports. You have to work really, really hard and ski to your absolute absolute maximum, so you almost feel like you're puking when you're at the top of those hills. Then you come down into the range and you've got to hit 5 targets right at the end, 50 meters away, half the length of a soccer field. You've got to steady yourself, and you've got to calm down, and you've got to see those targets, and you've got to shoot them. And you know what, if you miss those targets, you then have another loop that you've got to do. There's a 150-meter penalty loop that you have to run around for every single target that you miss. It's a pretty tough sport, but it's a lot of fun. So we don't just train in like athletic ability and balance, we also have to do shooting training. So like these guys here, it's a lot of hours, it's really disciplined. So after I did the race and we went to the nationals, then they developed a British women's biathlon team. And we'd spend some of our time in the summers going up to a glacier in team where we would ski super high in the Alps. And then in the winter we would ski race all around Europe. And I remember the first time, right, you're going to go to your first international competition. I was so nervous, I thought I was going to puke on my skis. So I got there and there was like 60 competitors. There was a couple of thousand people watching because it was just a Europa Cup. It was pretty small. And we were the first British women to go and race against these other skiers. And I can safely tell every one of you, I was absolutely terrified. And there's a rule in cross-country skiing that if you're the slowest skier and somebody comes behind you and you're in the way, and they shout track at you, you have to get out of their way pretty quick, otherwise you can get disqualified. So I was ready for this, there I was at the start, and I'm ready to go, and I'm skiing around, and I'm really nervous and feeling sick. And I have a Russian skier right behind me who's probably been skiing since she was 18 months old. And I'm waiting for track in Russian. This woman comes behind me and she goes, "Ah!" And I go, "Ah!" And I go right across out the track. I said, okay, we've got that one over with. So we go, and I have to ski this course. This is the toughest race course I have ever skied. It was 2 kilometers uphill and 1 kilometer all the way back down to the range. And I'm climbing up, and there's this hill, and you can hear all the spectators at the top shouting, but you can't see them. And you get over the top of this hill, and then you know it's downhill, and I'm coming down, and I get myself into a racing tuck, and I'm like, okay, breathe. And I'm trying to breathe, come down this hill, and I'm so nervous, I catch an edge. So you know when you're downhill skiing, there's all those like ski lines? And I catch this edge, but I'm so nervous about being in this race, I just can't move, right? So I'm like in my skis, and before I know it, bam, I flipped in the air, I've spun around, and I'm on my back, and I go head first into a snowbank. And I'm buried in like this with my gun, and my poles, and my skis, and I'm covered in snow, and I'm lying there, and I'm like, this wasn't meant to happen. Oh! So I clear my face so I can breathe, and I try to get up, but I'm in a powder snowbank, right? And there's nothing to push up, and I've got poles, and I like, then I have to shout, so I'm like lying there shouting, help! Help! And this really sweet German spectator comes across and starts digging me out, but I can't get out, because then I've realised that not only am I wedged in, my rifle, Troy, could you grab the box? My rifle that's on my back is also wedged in, so then I have to take my rifle off, take my skis off, and someone lifts me out and puts me on the side of the track. And I'm sure like all 60 other competitors have gone past me at this stage. But I'm like, man, this is the rifle, right? This thing was stuck in the snow. I'm like, man, I want to finish this race. This is my first ever Europa Cup. I've got to finish it. So I put my rifle back on my back, and you have like a backpack harness. And I ski down the hill, and I come into the range. I'm like Frosty the Snow Woman. I've got snow coming out of my pigtails. My rifle's this big snow block, and I'm like, that's okay, I can do this. And I come in to shoot, so I'm trying to calm myself down to shoot. And I flip open my foresight, and I flip open my rear sight.
Shoot her?
Get this gun. And I look through these sights, and they're all full of snow. I can't even see a target. I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I put my hand up, and someone comes and helps me, and we dig the snow out with a screwdriver. But by this time, this thing here is called the sight, and this is what makes me shoot straight. If this has had a big bang, it gets knocked out, which means I am not even going to hit one of those targets. And I shoot 1, and I miss. And 2, I miss. And 3, I miss. And 4, I miss. And 5, I miss. Oh. Luckily or not, this was called an individual race. So instead of having to do loops, thank goodness I just got a minute time penalty. So not only have all 60 competitors gone past me, now I'm 5 minutes behind them. And I've got 4 shoots to do in this race. And I've got to go back up that mountain another 4 times. which I did without falling. By the time I get in for my 4th shoot, I have missed 15 targets. Take away my race time, I'm like down 15 minutes. I'm like, man, but this is my first Europa Cup. And I've got to finish it because this is going to be awesome. And I come in, and I'm not shooting at anybody, I'm shooting. And I'm here, right? Stand. Miss. Miss, number 2. Number 3 is missed. Number 4 is missed. I'm like, oh God.
Are you going to shoot?
Hit! Yes! The crowd goes wild, the crowd are cheering, and they are clapping, and everywhere around that course, every single spectator knew my name. It was like I was a champion. I went the next day and I had a fan club. My first Europa Cup, I'm British, nobody knows me, but I've got a fan club. Take from that what you will. Sport is tough, sport puts you on the back, and it kicks your butt sometimes, but the rewards of getting up and going again are priceless. Trust me. After that experience, things got better. I continued to race. We did some Europa Cups. Then my team member and I, we were doing well enough that we got to race on the World Cup, which is absolutely amazing. Like in Europe, these sports are phenomenal. In biathlon, which I think has some of the biggest followings, just for a regular race, there'll be 40 to 50,000 people there. 10,000 people behind you in the stadium when you shoot. Amazing. I was so scared the first time I went out, I thought I was going to fall off my skis. But yeah, I did that. I got shortlisted for the Olympic Games. And then kind of the kicker from sport is when you're working that hard, sometimes you get sick. And when you get sick, your results get worse. So you train harder and then you get sicker. I ended up retiring from sport Olympic year 2002. I didn't qualify for the Games. I was also a little older as well, and I was 28, and I had to decide, did I want to go another 4 years, or did I want to do something else? So I opted to do something else. I retired from biathlon. I went back, I did some coaching in biathlon, but what it gave me was I went back and I went into a whole bunch of different sports. I tried rugby, I went mountain biking, I went climbing, I went downhill skiing, I hung out with my friends, I did a whole bunch of fun stuff. And now here in Canada, I get to coach, and I get to coach some of you guys and give a little bit back for the sport that I did. So, yeah,
Can we try to shoot the target with
Yeah, you gotta
If
go
you sign up
cross
for
country
biathlon.
skiing.
No, that's now. Yeah, that's what we tried to see.
Oh, you gotta sign up for
Too heavy.
cross country skiing biathlon.
So the thing for biathlon, guys, is it has bullets. And bullets hurt people, or little air pellets, which is what this uses. And this will only ever be used outside. But when we have demonstration days, if you want to come and try it, you can come and try it. But for today, you can just have a look at the rifle. And at the very end of the day, you guys can come and look at the rifle, look through the sights, and have a look at the targets, okay?
Does anyone have questions for Vicky? Georgia does.
Oh, when I was little, they don't really know. It was kind of a little bit like asthma, but I had a lot of fluid on my lungs. So I had to have physiotherapy 3 times a day. So for me to run was really difficult because I used to have to cough up spit all the time. So yeah. Aiden? I won lots of medals at the national championships, and I got a nice thing. So I know I didn't really win anything on the big stage, but at my national championships I got some medals. Yeah. Hannah.
Is that your only rifle?
Well, you know, this, I would love to say this was my rifle. I actually sold my rifle when I stopped racing because it's not something you kind of keep, because you have to look after it, use it, and have a license. So I sold mine to somebody in Norway who uses it now. This is a team biathlon air rifle. So anybody who signs up will get to use this when they come to the biathlon training session.
How much you pay for this now?
I did these for $1,500.
Yeah, they're just under $3,000.
Just under $3,000 brand new. My own rifle that you'll see in the picture up there, with the that was probably like now about $4,000 or $5,000, I'm thinking. They're pretty expensive. Yeah.
Marley?
I would get into a lot of trouble if I shot any people. No, I'm only allowed to shoot at targets. Otherwise, I would have my rifle taken away from me, get into a lot of trouble, and I would go to jail.
Yeah.
But you know what, that's a smart question, because you know what, you wouldn't want somebody to start shooting people.
No.
I'd be in a lot of trouble if that happened. You have to be very safety conscious and very smart when you do that. If you need glasses, I will help you, and you can see the target.
Georgia?
How old am I now is the secret.
She's not as old as I am.